Did you know that Harry Maguire has won more World Cup knockout games than Ronaldo? Or that Theo Walcott has more Champions League goals than Ronaldo Nazario? Or even that when you look at the numbers, Borussia Dortmund is, statistically, the biggest football club in the world? These are the craziest football stats you won't believe are true, and starting with the two GOATs of football, Cristiano Ronaldo and Harry Maguire? You see, few would deny that Cristiano Ronaldo is among the very greatest players to grace a football field. During his career, he's won both the Champions League and Ballon d'Or 5 times, scored over 950 career goals, and produced countless iconic moments. His longevity is remarkable. CR7 is so old that he played at Arsenal's Highbury Stadium and featured at the 2006 World Cup alongside Zinedine Zidane, Ronaldo Nazario, and Thierry Henry. But in the 20 years since Ronaldo's World Cup debut, the legendary attacker has never scored a knockout goal in the tournament, a total that's bettered by some of the game's most ordinary players, such as England's centre-back Harry Maguire. And the thing is, Maguire didn't even have to be that good to surpass Ronaldo's total. He just scored a standard header in the quarterfinals against Sweden in 2018, and suddenly had a greater World Cup knockout legacy than the Portugal superstar. Ronaldo has a chance to equal, or even better, Maguire if he's selected for the 2026 World Cup. But it's crazy that the greatest goal scorer of a generation is yet to score a knockout goal on the biggest stage, aged 41. Speaking of great goal scorers, Fernando Torres was a formidable striker who most football fans associate with the late 2000s. His career continued but began to stutter during the early 2010s, a period in which Diego Simeone was managing the greatest Atletico Madrid team in several years. But a stat that is bound to blow the minds of most football fans is that El Niño actually captained Simeone as a teenager at Atleti. The Spaniard was so influential during his breakout seasons in La Liga that Atletico awarded him with the captain's armband during the 03-04 season. At that time, Simeone was already in his mid-30s, being bossed around by a teenager with fewer than 100 La Liga appearances to his name. However, in 2011, the Argentine became Atletico Madrid's manager, where he'd eventually signed Torres in 2016. El Niño featured during a run to the Champions League final in 15-16 under a manager whom he'd captained 12 years earlier. It's mind-blowing to realize how different periods of football can overlap in unexpected ways, which is exactly what happens at Anfield when managers tend to reign for several years at a time. In fact, in Liverpool's 134-year history, they've only ever had 22 full-time managers. To make that stat even crazier, Liverpool went through 5 managers in just 10 years between 2004 and 2015. So, in the remainder of Liverpool's history, they've had 17 managers, meaning that each manager outside of the crazy 11-year period has remained at Anfield for an average of 17.7 years. To put that stat into perspective, the third longest managerial spell for any club in the Premier League era is just 11 years, while Championship side Watford have gone through 22 managers since 2015. Clearly, staying loyal to your manager is a strategy that works, because Liverpool are the most successful team in English football history, while Watford has never lifted a major trophy. Watford would be happy to get their hands on any silverware, but in 2022, Man City were bidding for their first Champions League triumph as they faced Real Madrid in the tournament's semi-finals. Having won the first leg 4-3, Man City were the favorites going into the second leg. Their chances of progressing only increased as the night went on, with City going 1-0 up and leading until stoppage time. In the 89th minute, a famous graphic appeared on screen. Real Madrid has a 1% chance of progressing when Real produced one of the greatest Champions League comebacks of all time. Rodrigo scored twice in injury time to level the tie and send the game to extra time, where Benzema scored 4 minutes in to help the Spanish club progress to the final. The quick-fire goals at the end of regular time and at the beginning of extra time made Real somehow avoid a 99% chance of exiting the tournament. But for City, it may have been karma. In stoppage time on the final day of the 2012 Premier League season, the citizens needed 2 goals to snatch the title for Man United. Edin Dzeko and Sergio Aguero scored to win City's first Premier League title from a position where they had a probability that was comparable to Madrid's 10 years later. But not every great team or player wins league titles. Everybody knows that the Premier League eluded Liverpool and England great Steven Gerrard, but more fans are surprised to learn that Antoine Griezmann has never won a La Liga title. The French international has played for either Atletico Madrid or Barcelona since 2014, plus Real Sociedad earlier, a period in which the two Spanish giants have lifted La Liga on a combined 7 occasions. But on each occasion, when either Atleti or Barca lifted the title, Griezmann was playing for the wrong team. To make matters worse, Atleti won La Liga this season before he joined, while Barca won it the season after he left. Was Griezmann the problem? Probably not. He scored over 200 goals and made almost 100 assists in La Liga. He's just been unfortunate with timing. But Welsh winger Gareth Bale must have been destined for glory because his arrival in Madrid was much better timed than Griezmann's. During Bale's 9-year stay in Madrid, he won a trophy in every single season, including 3 La Liga and 5 Champions League trophies. It was the turning point in Bale's career, who had not previously won a single trophy during his stints at Tottenham Hotspur and Southampton. But when the Madrid star returned to Tottenham on loan in 2022, he suffered his first trophyless season since his departure over a decade earlier. He still scored 11 goals in 20 Premier League matches, concluding a glistening career at the elite level. But Bale might just be frustrated that it was Tottenham who gave him his breakthrough and not Man City or Liverpool, because his trophy cabinet could look even more incredible. One player who's destined to have an insane trophy cabinet by the time he hangs up his boots is Man City forward Erling Haaland, who has already bagged 105 Premier League goals in 121 matches. That's 0.86 goals per game. Without context, that's a truly ridiculous stat. But with context, some might question whether the Norwegian will eventually feature alongside Ronaldo and Henry in Premier League GOAT debates. You see, Henry has the Premier League's second highest goal-to-game ratio, netting an average of 0.68 times per 90. Meanwhile, the league's all-time top goalscorer Alan Shearer has a goal-to-game of just 0.59. To show how impressive Haaland's .86 is even further, CR7 is nowhere to be seen with a goal-to-game ratio of 0.46, making him just over half as prolific as the Norwegian in the Prem. If the Man City man plays as many games as Ronaldo did for United, he's on track to conclude his time at the Etihad with 202 goals. But if he stays in the Premier League for as long as Shearer did, he'll obliterate goal-scoring records with a projected total of 379. And by that point, Haaland would not even be in his mid-30s and could have time to leave and break more records for Barca, Real, or one of the 2 Milan giants. Most supporters do not fully realize the greatness that we're currently watching and the heights that Haaland could hit. Another player that's already set to go down with the greats is France and Real Madrid star Kylian Mbappe, because he already holds the record for the most goals scored in the final of the World Cup. During Mbappe's 2 World Cup final appearances, the Frenchman has netted 4 times. On his first appearance on the grand stage, he scored from outside the penalty area to become just the second teenager to net in a World Cup final as France beat Croatia 4-2. His 2022 final was even more iconic, despite ending up on the losing team as France lost on penalties to Argentina. Mbappe pulled off the most iconic World Cup performance of all time, scoring twice in the final 10 minutes to take Argentina to extra time. After Argentina retook the lead in extra time, Mbappe converted a penalty with minutes left on the clock to send the game to the penalty shootout, where the Frenchman netted another, but his nation ultimately lost out. Still, it means Mbappe has 4 World Cup final goals, more than any other player in history and more than Maradona, Messi, and Ronaldo put together. But it's not just Mbappe's World Cup final record that could put legends to shame. Having scored 162 goals in 178 league-owned matches for PSG, many questioned whether he'd be as prolific in a more competitive league. However, during 25-26, Mbappe has produced a greater seasonal goal-to-game ratio than all but one player in the club's history, Cristiano Ronaldo. And at 27, the French ace still has time to improve on his records. Many don't realize it, but the Frenchman is only a couple of major honors away from having a career that will have been more impressive than many legends. Speaking of legend debates, the status of Cristiano Ronaldo among football fans has taken a dip in recent seasons. Having spent the 2010s being placed in GOAT conversations alongside Lionel Messi, some fans have attempted to rewrite history and claim that the Portugal ace's career was barely more impressive than players like Zinedine Zidane, R9, Neymar, and Ronaldinho. But when we look at Ronaldo's stats, they're arguably greater than any other player in history. He scored more goals in recognized FIFA competitions than any other player, leads all-time Champions League goal-scoring charts, and only 5 players have won the illustrious European prize more than CR7. But even more impressively, Ronaldo has won 5 Ballon d'Or trophies, the second most of any player in history, and more than Zidane, R9, Ronaldinho, and Neymar combined. And Ronaldo did it in an era when 8-time winner Leo Messi was at his brilliant best, arguably making it a harder period than any other to win the Ballon d'Or. But Ronaldo still managed it on 5 occasions, surely meaning he deserves a little more respect in the conversations. Because the ex-Madridista had supremely greater numbers than Diego Maradona, who many fans consider to be in the top 3 players of all time alongside Messi and Pelé. While Maradona was an artist with the ball, as he'd pirouette and weave past helpless defenders, he did not score an abnormal number of goals, which most modern players are judged on. In fact, Maradona's 162 club-level goals is 113 fewer than Jermaine Defoe's, 109 fewer than Thomas Müller's, and 27 fewer than midfielder Steven Gerrard's total. We're not trying to make the claim that these players were better than Maradona, but each player scored more goals than the Argentine while having other important elements to their game, such as Gerrard's passing, leadership, and defensive work, or Müller's intelligence, movement, and creativity. And Maradona only scored 34 times for Argentina. It's still an impressive tally, but it's dwarfed by Messi's 115 and Ronaldo's 143. So, is it time to accept that Maradona was a magician and one of the most mesmerizing players to watch in history, but not an elite goal scorer like many of the modern-day greats? You see, there are surprising numbers everywhere you look in football. For example, if someone were to answer the much-debated question, who's the world's biggest football club? They'd probably answer Real Madrid, Barcelona, Man United, or Bayern Munich. But what if we told you that none of these elite football clubs has the world's largest stadium attendance? In fact, it's not even one of the Milan clubs or Liverpool, but Borussia Dortmund, who are often disregarded as an average German club compared to the European giants. BVB boast an impressive 25-26 average attendance of 81,165, 6,000 more than Bayern, 7,000 more than Man United and Real Madrid, and 9,000 more than the Milan clubs. In fact, the top 10 features several surprising clubs, with Marseille, Roma, and Atletico Madrid having higher crowds than Liverpool, Barcelona, and PSG. Of course, these clubs would be likely to attract around 80,000 supporters if their stadiums allowed them to do so, but they currently have lower capacities than dozens of mid-tier European clubs. Thousands of fans battled to catch a glimpse of the great Ronaldo Nazario while he was in his prime at Barca, Inter, and Real. But he's another player that might not have had as great of a career as nostalgia makes us believe. R9's talent is undeniable. He was blistering during his only season at the Nou Camp. He scored the second most goals of any player at the World Cup and won the Ballon d'Or on 2 separate occasions. With 330 goals in 499 club-level matches, the Brazilian has a greater goal-per-game ratio than many of the game's biggest names. And his record might have been even more impressive had he stayed injury-free throughout his career. But there was one competition where R9 was less clinical: the Champions League. During Ronaldo's 40 Champions League appearances, he netted on just 14 occasions. 9 of those 14 goals were against some of the tournament's weaker teams, such as Marseille, Spartak Moscow, Lokomotiv Moscow, Monaco, Roma, and Dinamo Kiev. It's a record that's inferior to dozens of run-of-the-mill footballers, including Theo Walcott, who scored 21 times on the highest European stage. That crazy statistic made us look at the teams against which R9 holds his worst goal-scoring record, and it doesn't read well for the Brazilian. In his 15 games against Juve, Real, Arsenal, and Bayern, each of whom were considered among the world's strongest teams in the late 90s and early 2000s, he scored just 3 goals. So, is R9's legacy distorted slightly by the number of goals that he scored against weaker teams in La Liga, Serie A, and the World Cup? One player many football fans might not want to admit has been more deadly against elite opposition is Robert Lewandowski. The forward is the 7th highest club-level goal scorer in football history and has the Champions League record to back it up. Lewa has scored a mouth-watering 107 goals in the Champions League, including 6 against Real Madrid and 4 versus Barcelona. But that's not the craziest part of Lewandowski's record-breaking career, because he once scored 5 goals in 9 minutes after coming off the bench. The statistic sounds absurd, fake, and as if you were playing FIFA on amateur mode. But he actually achieved it while playing in a Bundesliga match for Bayern Munich against Wolfsburg in 2015. Wolfsburg might be dismissed as a low-quality German club, but at the time, they were on a 15-game unbeaten run and went to the Allianz Arena with a degree of confidence. But all of that confidence evaporated almost the same second Lewandowski came off the bench. Lewandowski scored 3 goals in 3 minutes and 22 seconds, 4 in 5 minutes and 42 seconds, and had his 5th after 8 minutes and 59 seconds, all taking place between the 51st and 60th minute. Bayern won the game 5-1 as Lewandowski produced one of the craziest cameo appearances of all time. The Polish striker was later transferred to Barcelona as the Spanish Giants attempted to replicate Messi's productivity. While Lewandowski's goals have been instrumental to Barcelona's La Liga success in recent seasons, there's another star at the club who plays a more comparable style to Messi, Lamine Yamal. The La Masia star's crazy off-field antics might prevent him from reaching the heights that Messi did during his prime, but Yamal will argue that he doesn't need to worry yet because he's already beating the numbers Messi produced as a teenager. At the age of 18, Yamal has scored 40 and assisted 47 times in 145 appearances for Barcelona, giving the Catalan an average goal involvement per game of 0.6. It took Messi until he was 23 to register as many appearances for the Blaugrana, and he was not as productive during that period, producing 0.48 goal involvements per game. Yamal's crazy start to his career is put into context when measured alongside the numbers of Messi, because the Argentine rewrote the record books of football. Many of his statistics would sound fake if supporters were not already aware of them. Everybody already knows that Messi won 8 Ballon d'Or titles, scored 787 club-level goals, and lifted every trophy that was available to him. But a scary stat that you might be unaware of is that in 2024, Messi's 672 Barcelona goals was 7.1% of the total scored in Barca's 126-year history. The fact becomes even more mind-blowing when you consider the great teams and goal-scoring talents such as Samuel Eto'o, Rivaldo, and Patrick Kluivert that played for Barca before Messi. His 672 goals is the highest number any footballer has ever registered at a single club, while Messi also holds the record for most career appearances for Barcelona with 778 games to his name. Interestingly, the next 5 players to make the most Barca appearances are Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, Piqué, and Puyol, each of whom played alongside Messi. It shows that Messi's ability to single-handedly score unbelievable goals and win tight matches helped create stability around him elsewhere in the team. If Messi is scoring at an unprecedented rate in attack, it means fewer questions will be asked of other players on the pitch. While each of Barca's top appearance holders was world-class in their own right, they may not have survived for so long at the Camp Nou if they did not have Messi to get them out of jail on occasion.